As 2022 is looking to bring us some absolutely awesome new fantasy anime series, we take a look back at some of the greatest fantasy anime that you have to check out. Welcome back to Animeology, as we run through our list of the best fantasy anime series that you probably haven't seen but definitely need to watch. Number 10. Chrome-Shelled Regios. A really fun mix of fantasy and light science fiction, Chrome-Shelled Regios is set on an alternate version of Earth that is dominated by these weird part machine, part beast that are called filth monsters. They really do look as disgusting as they sound. Because of these horrifying beasts, humans are forced to live in these huge mobile cities that are called Regios, constantly staying on the move to try to avoid encountering these incredibly dangerous filth monsters. The MC is one of the 12 wielders of Heaven's Blades. These incredibly powerful weapons require a very strong user with powerful control of the force needed to use these custom-made weapons. We slowly start to learn some serious truths about this horrible version of Earth and everything behind it. The slow burn unraveling lore is complemented really well with the day-to-day struggle for survival. Number 9. Roka no Yusha. A really awesome watch that will have you on the edge of your seat from the very first episode. A brilliant blend of action, fantasy, and mystery, Roka is one of the best series out there. A bit outdated, but it has definitely aged well. The story follows these 6 people selected by a goddess in order to defeat the demon god, but when these heroes assemble, there are actually 7 of them. One of the 7 is clearly an imposter, sent by the demon god himself. That alone should have you hooked. A really interesting and mysterious tale with good and bad, evil, and all the great stuff in between. The world design itself is also really unique, a very fresh look at an ancient sort of civilization. Similar to those old Mayan or Aztec temples, we guarantee you've seen nothing like it. You follow Adlet, someone claiming to be the strongest man in the world, using his cunning, wit, and a whole bunch of tools in order to best his opponents. Throughout the series, we learn about his motivation and the interesting tale of bloodshed, war, and violence that plague the world of Roka. A slow burn and a big reveal that you do not want to miss out on. Number 8. Chika, the Coffin Princess. A very interesting combination of action and fantasy, Chika the Coffin Princess tells a story of a world ravaged by war. Recently ending a 300-year-long war, the New World is trying to rebuild and have divided the spoils of war between the Council of 6 Nations. This anime follows the story of Toru, a spy and mastermind during the war. But since the battle is ended, he finds himself out of work and with no use for any of his skills. Luckily enough, he encounters a strange wizard in the forest that travels around in a coffin. Don't worry, it only gets weirder from here. This beautiful white-haired wizard is in danger from a man-eating unicorn but is saved by our hero, Toru. Chika the Coffin Princess hires Toru and his sister for an epic journey to scatter the ashes of the old and powerful magical emperor. We learn that the emperor was actually Chika's father and she wishes to give him a proper burial, but parts of him are held by the different nations as they wish to harness the old emperor's insanely strong magical power. Number 7. Katanagatari. The best kind of journey type animes are the ones that end up with a very clear end. Like, it becomes extremely apparent what the MC is aiming for, and as a viewer, you really feel proud as you see those milestones reached. Katanagatari means sword hunt. It's the journey to find 12 weapons that were created by a famous swordsmith. The story follows a young swordsman that doesn't actually fight with a sword. Our MC is actually so powerful with his bare-handed fighting style, he was selected for this journey because the power of the swords will not corrupt him. We join him on this swashbuckling action-packed adventure as he heads off with a very interesting group on the hunt for these legendary swords. A fantastic journey with a really great sense of accomplishment. You watch it for the strong storyline, but it's impossible not to fall in love with the characters. Number 6. Zero no Tsukaima. A very interesting social commentary more than anything. Zero no Tsukaima brings a pretty mature commentary about wealth and the class system that is pretty similar to the time of nobles, kings, and queens. But don't worry, it doesn't linger too long on all that. At its heart, Zero no Tsukaima is a comedy fantasy with some quality harem waifus. The story itself follows a bunch of students from a magic academy, with the MCs being Louise and Saito, a really weak magic user and her assistant from Earth. This class system in Zero no Tsukaima has magic users as a kind of nobleman. This is a really core part of the comedy behind the series. What makes this anime such a great watch is the beautiful chemistry between Saito and Louise. You already get a sense of tenderness from the very first episode, with the underdog magic and her trusty familiar. Slowly seeing that grow and blossom really makes Zero no Tsukaima a really intimate and engaging series you need to check out. Number 5. Charlotte. Charlotte definitely has some funny moments to it, but the series definitely goes into the more dramatic elements. Dealing with some heavier and more intense themes, the action is still good, but the interesting character arcs and story points are why we love Charlotte so much. Set in a strange alternate reality where this comet called Charlotte passes close to the Earth every 75 years, covering the surface with space dust. This space dust has a chance to make young children into insanely powerful superhumans. We follow a young boy with this awesome power to possess another person for 5 seconds. Funnily enough, our MC isn't the traditional hero and actually keeps his awesome power a secret. He uses it to live an extremely carefree life and get great grades, avoid bullies, etc. Unfortunately, another magic user at the school, now, learns of his powers and she forces him to move to a magic user school for him to hone his powers and protect him from getting exploited by other people. Although the story does go to pretty strange places, Charlotte performs best as an interesting slice of life anime more than anything else. The day-to-day with the characters is really fun and enjoyable. It's definitely a comfy watch more than anything and something you should be checking out right now. Number 4. Made in Abyss. Made in Abyss is some pretty heavy dark fantasy that does try to explain things away with science fiction. A pretty new series that is definitely worth checking out with the second season set to come out soon. Following a young orphan girl by the name of Riko and her life in this weird town that borders this huge hole that just opens up deep into the earth. Referred to as the Abyss, this hole contains strange artifacts and remnants that can be worth quite a lot. This has led to the area becoming a popular spot for cave raiders, people that go on extremely dangerous and scary descents into the Abyss in order to find relics. There's even a mythical curse of the Abyss that is said to drive these cave raiders mad. One of the most famous and fearless cave raiders is actually Riko's mother, and she wishes to follow in her mother's footsteps, until one day she disappeared one day, with the mysterious note attached to a balloon floating up, addressed to Riko from her mother stating that she was waiting at the bottom. We're not going to be telling you anymore, do yourself a favor and check out Made in Abyss. Number 3. Inuyasha. Inuyasha takes high fantasy to a whole new level, bringing a refreshing mix of real-life history to an exciting and compelling adventure that had us invested from the very first episode. Following a high school girl Kagome, she gets dragged away by a centipede demon into a parallel universe far in the past. We learn that our hero Kagome is actually the reincarnation of a powerful and fearsome warrior priestess. An epic tale of a magical gem that grants the holder anything that they might wish and some pretty horrific demons and beasts. Kagome must travel this horrifying fantasy realm while learning more about her past life and her true destiny. With a few interesting additions to her party, Kagome is continuously on edge as she cannot even trust her party members. Everyone wants to get their hands on that wish-granting jewel. Number 2. Grimgar. You can't go wrong with dark fantasy, and Grimgar is easily one of the best in class. A seriously overlooked series that kicks off with a group of brand new adventurers that wake up in a forest with no memory of how they arrived at all. Getting caught up in the magical realm they find themselves in, our band of heroes stars hunting weak monsters, earning money, and barely surviving, slowly getting more involved with the politics and issues of the area. Grimgar is so brilliant because it's the slow burn isekai that we so rarely get to see. Often we get thrown into the thick of things with heavy and epic tales. Grimgar takes a step back and looks to show us the slow and grounded pacing that things go by, tense and a bit more serious than we're used to. The story of Grimgar is one that you'll be itching to follow. Brilliant characters with some high-octane battles, fantastic arcs, and an interesting overall story. You'll come for the adventure, but you'll stay for everything else. Grimgar deserves your attention. Number 1. Moribito, Guardian of the Spirit. A bit older than most of the recommendations on this list, Moribito is a classic amongst anime circles. Seriously underrated and considered one of the greatest of all time, Moribito was based on a series of fantasy novels that came out in the 90s. We follow Balsa, a wandering warrior that has vowed to fix the wrongs of the 8 killings she was a part of by saving 8 lives. She plans to achieve this by being a bodyguard, saving the prince and becoming his bodyguard, but then learning that it was his own father, the king, that ordered the assassination. The story really begins to kick off as the prince becomes the most targeted man in the kingdom, and the unlikely duo will begin an epic and dangerous journey while trying to uncover the truth behind the kingdom and keep the prince alive. We slowly start to learn more and more about Balsa and her grim backstory, as Moribito has a lot of rich and well-crafted avenues for its storytelling to keep us engaged and invested from the very first episode.